Wherever you could be, I would say thank you so much for being part of the biggest TV in Arua City. Of course, with you, we shall be discussing a number of sporting stories developing as far as the day is concerned. But the biggest one is Pakwat's youngsters attaining promotion back to the big league. Then Ntuka Sazi finally securing the services of a veteran coach. I'm talking about Dudu Bosco, our own from Western region. Then internationally, we have seen a number of teams making headlines in the World Cup, but the biggest one is Tunisia, and they are making Africa to be one of the talking points in the World Cup games. Of course, Tunisia has never won any of the games in the World Cup so far. Out of the two games, they have conceded around 10 goals already in the World Cup. That's Tunisia for you. So we shall be discussing that. But of course, the new debutants in Africa, I'm talking about Cape Verde, they are doing extremely very, very well. I'll be telling you the results of the World Cup. And in the world of transfers, the big one is team Barcelona are still monitoring the services of Marcus Rashford. They are saying if any deal comes for this guy in the names of Rafinha, they can be in position to sign Marcus Rashford from Manchester United. Of course, there's a good one at Arsenal as there's a huge news for Arsenal fans as they are looking at Declan Rice as a tool to convince this guy. I'm talking about Morgan Rogers from Aston Villa. All this we shall be discussing with you. Of course, first thing first, my name is Senior Geroh. Let's begin from home. Of course, local sports is our priority here at Sararights TV. Of course, in the world of local sports here, let's begin from Geroh District. Of course, the Geroh District hosted the first ever edition of the triple zonal league finals here in Lejutown Council yesterday. Of course, a number of games were played in that specific. Of course, in the zonal league main final league, of course, we did see this team of Johanna that comes from Pakwat district were 2-0 winners over Yankee Villa area. Of course, they managed to be the champions of the main zonal leagues final. Of course, when it comes to the regional league promotional final game that was played yesterday, of course, we did see Hot Springs of Yumbe did beat a team in the names of Hot Springs. Town Council by 3 goals to 2. Then in the provincial league final, we did see Paromba United recording a 1-0 win of Ottoman FC. Those were some of the games that were played yesterday at Lejutown Council Stadium, whereby there was a lot of numbers, whereby a number of fans gathered in and a number of people were in attendance, including the other DC of Geroh District, not forgetting the district chairperson of Geroh. They were all in attendance, and I can tell you the number was hugely massive at Lejutown Council, whereby the region itself got a lot of money in that kind of setup. Of course, Geroh District is the first district in Western to host such kind of games for the first time. Of course, no another district has hosted the triple edition of the zonal league finals. It was Geroh District hosting that. Those were some of the events that actually transpired over the weekend. In case you missed up the action that happened at Luo Grounds down in Nebi Municipality, we did see the team in the names of Pakwat youngsters recording a 2-0 win over the Lion that comes from Gulu City. Of course, both teams were craving so much to go back to the big league, but I can tell you whether Team Pakwat youngsters in the second league of the promotional playoff that was played over the weekend on Saturday, they did beat the team of Padua Lions with authority with a scoreline of 2-0 in there. Of course, I can tell you that was one of the tantalizing games that Team Pakwat youngsters have ever played in. Of course, the team has been playing the games at the Omat Stadium down in Pakwat District, but for the first time, this team played their promotional game at Luo Grounds. Last time I was telling you, this team of Pakwat youngsters, they are not an ordinary team. This is a team that has been playing in the big league. Those days were back in 1996. The team was in the big league level, and they have now gone back to the big league. This is an accolade that Sapton Sido Kutin, where the recruitment team that he had in, of course, he managed to maneuver his way through, and he has now added Pakwat youngsters into the big league. Of course, Pakwat youngsters replaces Nebisendo Football Club, which was relegated from the big league last season. So in West Nile, we shall be having a number of teams playing in the big league itself. Of course, we shall be having Pakwat youngsters itself. We shall be having this team in the name of the Black Angels. And then we shall be having Calvary that comes from Yumbe District. Then on the Football Club here in Arua, these are the team that we shall be watching in the big league. Of course, we shall be having a number of West Nile derbies, around 4 derbies so far in West Nile in the big league can one of them make us proud to see that the teams attain promotion into the Southern Ghana Premier League? This is where we shall be having a number of teams playing in the Southern Ghana Premier League. Of course, in Western region, we don't have any representative in the Southern Ghana Premier League so far. So it's only Northern Uganda that is having a Black Power that we are crowned the champions of Football Big League last season. So Team Black Power has already attained the promotion back to the Southern Ghana Premier League. That's something which is very, very huge for them. And this team of Pakwati Youngsters has a huge task to perform now with what we call the recruitment team. And this is not the high time that the team needed to have a qualified CEO. This is not the moment that the Pakwati Youngsters needed to have what we call a coach who has got the level to qualify in the big league. Of course, when you have Samson Sizo Kuti as your head coach, Samson Sizo Kuti doesn't have the credentials to be at the big league level so far. So it's high time that this team of Pakwati Youngsters needed to get someone who has got the CAF B to coach in the big league level. Of course, in Uganda, you need to have CAF B. Of course, Samson Sizo Kuti is only having CAF C, which is not actually eligible for him to make it into the big league level. So Samson Sizo Kuti probably can be deputized in the head coach that will be added in that team of Pakwati Youngsters. So Samson Sizo could be one of the most technical people who I think can help that team of Pakwati Youngsters, but currently he doesn't have the papers to lead the team of Pakwati Youngsters in the big league next season. And of course, in some of the developing story that's actually transpired very, very soon in here in Uganda, we did see our own from West Nile in the names of Dudu Bosco, the veteran himself, has kind of got actually a new home at Ntuga Sazi, whereby he will be at the helm. Of course, Dudu Bosco has a CAF A license, which is something which is very, very good for him, and he is the only coach in West Nile who is having that actually apparently in West Nile region, and he is now living to the building, and he's actually raising the flag of West Nile, to the highest level. Of course, when you look at coaches in West Nile region, we have got coaches like Samson Sizo Kuti, we have coaches like Fabio Ahmed Borini. These are coaches in West Nile, but they're not having the CAF A licenses, which can make them eligible to qualify to coach any club in Africa, and Dudu Bosco has that now in himself, and he is mandatory that he is going to be the person who will be helping that team of Ntuga Sazi. Of course, Ntuga Sazi finished the season in the big league in the second position with 53 points. Remember, it was the Black Power who were crowned champions of the big league last season. Black Power won it with 55 points. There was a huge difference of around 2 points between the two teams, and Ntuga Sazi has now acquired the services of Dudu Bosco, one of the experienced coaches in Uganda. Of course, he has coached a number of teams here in West Nile. Of course, he has coached this team in the names of on the practical club. He has coached by the Black Angels, he has coached Doves All Stars, he has coached Arua Hill, he has even equally coached this team of Al Tabora from South Sudan. He equally coached this team of NEC recently in the Southern Ghana Premier League, whereby they did a lot of good things in that team of NEC in there. So it still remains to be seen whether Dudu Bosco can be important to live longer at that team of Ntuga Sazi. Of course, Ntuga Sazi will be making their first debut in the Southern Ghana Premier League. Of course, they are going to be playing under the new era. So Dudu Bosco has a huge task to perform at Ntuga Sazi. That's where we shall be having our eyes set on Dudu Bosco. Of course, Dudu Bosco has been one of the highly rated tacticians in Ugandan football. He is good in tapping after the senior players. He's good in signing good players. That has been the biggest thing. Of course, he is good at taking players for international engagements. Of course, we have seen a number of players in Western region being shifted to South Sudan. Of course, Dudu Bosco at that team of Ntuga Sazi, he has another huge task to perform himself. He wanted to be one of the most professional coaches in that team of Ntuga Sazi. As I was talking to him in a few moments time, Dudu Bosco said that he wanted to make this team to look a little bit competitive in the Southern Ghana Premier League, because he wanted to see that this team stays longer in the Southern Ghana Premier League. Though it's their first time to be in the league, of course, there is no need for you to underrate any team. Of course, in the Southern Ghana Premier League, first we shall be having 18 teams in the Southern Ghana Premier League. So Dudu Bosco has a huge task to perform. Of course, he is good at tapping players, he's good in signing players, and he is one of the dealers in Ugandan football so far. So he has CAF A, and he will be at that team of Ntuga Sazi. So let's leave that, and that we'll talk about the issue of Ade Brian, the player that plays for the proper club. Of course, he is the highest top-notch player at that team of the proper club. he has been one of the most influential players in that team of last season in the big league. He scored a number of crucial goals, and there are reports saying that team AC Villa, the 17-time champions of the Southern Ghana Premier League, they are saying that they wanted the services of Adebayo. One of the reasons why they said they needed the services of Adebayo is just because the quality that Adebayo possesses on pitch and off pitch is kind of tremendous, and they are saying that they wanted the services of Adebayo. And Adebayo is also saying that he is ready to go to AC Villa. So it's not down to AC Villa to come into contact terms with the Football Club just because Adebayo still has a 1-year contract running at the Football Club. Can AC Villa convince the hierarchy of other representatives? Can AC Villa management or is the recruitment team be in position to have an agreement with for the services of Adebayo? That still remains to be seen, but I can tell you Adebayo is going to be one of the most talking points, and he is not being monitored by AC Villa only alone, but a number of teams have been talking about. Ducat has been talking about him. Clubs like Black Power has been talking about his services. So it still remains to be seen whether he can be in position to quit that team of Football Club and join the Southern Ghana Premier League champions, long-time champions. I'm talking about AC Villa. Of course, AC Villa are the record champions of the Southern Ghana Premier League. 17 of them they have won, and Adebayo will be having an actual chance of playing in that team of AC Villa. Of course, AC Villa has a history, actually has a very, very rich history when it comes to Ugandan football, and they have been one of the continental actual team that has been playing so much in Uganda. So it's going to be one of the most interesting things for Adebayo in case the deal materializes in there. Of course, a number of games were played over the weekend in the current World Cup games. Of course, we did see Ecuador playing out a 0-0 draw with Churunkao. Of course, Tunisia were beaten by 4-0 by Japan. Then we did see Belgium playing a 0-0 draw with Iran. Then Spain ran riot of Saudi Arabia. They did beat Saudi Arabia by 4-0. And then Uruguay played into a 2-2 draw with Cape Verde. And then we did see New Zealand being beaten 3-1 by Egypt. Of course, Mo Salah is one of the headliners in that game of Egypt against New Zealand yesterday. So in the World Cup games coming up today, we shall be having Argentina that will be playing against Austria. Then we shall be seeing France that will be playing against Iraq. These are some of the games that will be coming up in the World Cup. Of course, let's talk about the Tunisia-Japan game. Tunisia has been one of the teams that has been so much underrated. They have been doing tremendous well in African football, but when it comes to continental engagements, Tunisia has tried to actually give a lot of low kind of expectations actually about the games currently in the World Cup. Of course, they have been beaten by a number of teams. Of course, in their first game, they were walloped by 6-0 by I think Mexico. Then again they were beaten by 4-0 by Japan. These are some of the games that were played. Of course, Tunisia never prepared themselves well. Japan is not only a team that has been so much dangerous when it comes to World Cup engagements or continental engagements, but I expected Tunisia, one of the most organized nations in Africa, to be a little bit organized when it comes to this kind of engagements, because playing at that top level of football, I expected the government of Tunisia to be all that in direct contact with the players, so that he also gives motivation to these players. And these players are really underperforming in the World Cup. They're giving Africa a shadow of itself. Of course, new debutants, I'm talking about Cape Verde, they are the ones who are actually raising the flag of Africa so much in there. Of course, we've seen how they have tried to play against a big team. Of course, they disappointed Spain by playing up into a 0-0 draw with Spain. And then again yesterday, we did see Cape Verde also playing up into a 2-2 draw with Uruguay, one of the most organized teams in Europe right now. And it still remains to be seen how our own African teams will be performing. Of course, Egypt will be having a chance of probably going into the round of 32. And then teams like Ghana, teams like Ivory Coast, they still have got a chance of going into the next level. So we shall be watching this one closely. So in the world of transfers, of course, the biggest one is at Manchester United, as Marcus Rashford is also on the radar of Barcelona yet again. Of course, his actually release clause with from Barcelona expired just because he never raised to that mutual agreement with Barcelona Football Club. Of course, Barcelona Football Club signed this guy from Manchester on loan on demand that after after the expiry of his contract, that's when they will sign him permanently. But it never actually yielded any fruit. So Marcus Rashford's actual violation clause with Barcelona and Manchester United came to an end, and Barcelona never signed him. So there was a huge issue now at that deal, and I can tell you this is going to be one of the biggest things for Marcus Rashford. And Barcelona are saying that if any club that comes with money for the services of Rafinha, then that's when they can be in position to sign Marcus Rashford from Manchester. And Marcus Rashford is open at staying at Barcelona. He never wanted to come back to United. He said that he wanted to stay at Barcelona, whereby he'll be having the opportunity to play games. Because at Manchester United are saying that they are ready to cash him out. Any club that's interested in his services, they are ready to sell Marcus Rashford. But I think Marcus Rashford, at his age right now, he is already at 28 years old right now. It's high time that Marcus Rashford needed to go to Manchester United and gives room for those of Brian Mbeumo of this world, the Matthias Cunhas of this world, the Park Dogu that Kark wanted to shift him up front. So it's high time that Marcus Rashford needed to find another opportunity for him to go and play games. Of course, Barcelona, he's actually only admired, and he wants to play for Barcelona Football Club. That's Marcus Rashford for you. And there's a huge one, as Paris Saint-Germain have not already entered into the race to sign Geroh Sararights from West Ham United. Of course, Geroh Sararights, this guy in the World Cup so far, he has already scored 2 goals for his national team. I'm talking about Netherlands. His form for Netherlands Football Club, his form with Netherlands is very impressive. And Paris Saint-Germain are saying that they wanted to sign him. Of course, this has now ended the hopes of Manchester United. They're also willing to sign him. So, when offers start coming like this, definitely his asking price will go higher and higher. And Manchester United are saying that if Paris Saint-Germain is also entered into the race, they may actually withdraw from that deal of signing Geroh Sararights from West Ham. Of course, Manchester United is already tracking a number of players, including Geroh Sararights, not forgetting Matheus Fernandes from West Ham United. So it still remains to be seen whether Michael Carrick can be in position to sign this player in the names of Geroh Sararights. In the Manchester United, they have no intention of selling the 23-year-old Slovenian striker. I'm talking about Benjamin Sesko, and they are reports that Barcelona and Atletico Madrid are interested in his services. Manchester United are saying that they are not interested in the services of this guy in the names of Benjamin Sesko. So it still remains to be seen whether Manchester United can be in position to let go of Benjamin Sesko. Of course, he was one of the most actually entertaining players for Manchester United. Whenever he comes from the bench, ever since Michael Carrick took charge at Manchester United, Benjamin Sesko was scoring goals for fun at Old Trafford. So we shall be seeing whether Manchester United can be in position to let him go. Of course, Benjamin Sesko is still very young, only 22 years old, but I think at Manchester United, with the number of games that Manchester United will be playing in the Champions League, in other domestic engagements, in the Community Shield, in the FA Cup, definitely he will be adding numbers for Manchester United, and probably that's when he will get to score a number of goals for Manchester United. Of course, he said that before he came to Manchester United, he said that he only wants to play for Manchester United, and Benjamin Sesko is the player that Manchester United has been talking about. Of course, Juventus summer signing list includes Aston Villa's goalkeeper. I'm talking about Emiliano Martinez. Not forgetting former Manchester City defender Johnson. They are saying that they wanted to sign these players to come in and probably help them in that perspective. So it still remains to be seen whether Juventus can be important to sign both Emiliano Martinez and Johnson. Of course, Johnson's can join Juventus on for free. Of course, his contract with Manchester City came to an end last season, so he is currently now a free agent. He is ready to join any club of his wish. So Juventus are saying that they wanted the services of this guy in the names of John Stones, the former central defender from Manchester City. Of course, his contract expired at Etihad Stadium. Of course, Leeds have lost an open bid worth around £20 million for the services of Southampton midfielder Geroh Sararights. Of course, they're saying that they wanted the services of Geroh Sararights. That is Leeds United for you. Of course, Leeds United will be playing in the Premier League. Of course, Senegal striker Nicolas Jackson, 25, is not willing to leave Chelsea, and he is saying that he wanted to compete at Chelsea Football Club, and he wanted to be one of the regular starters under Xabi Alonso. He is saying that he wanted to compete for a number of positions there. He, of course, he wanted to compete with the likes of the laps of this world. He said he wanted to have that actual convincing power to see that he plays to the best, to see that he also convinces the coach. I'm talking about Xabi Alonso, such that he says put at Chelsea Football Club. Of course, Rennes are not actually are set to move for Sunderland to the 1-year-old Spanish striker Eliezer Mayenda. Of course, this is according to Football Mercato. They report saying that they wanted the services of this guy from Sunderland. Then West Ham United are exploring a move for 31-year-old English defender Adam Webster. Of course, they said they wanted to sign the Brighton and Hove Albion defender. So it still remains to be seen whether this guy can be in position to come into that team of West Ham United from Brighton. Of course, my time is up. I need to quit the studio for the next program to come because the news bulletin is set to kick off very, very soon in the main studio. Of course, today we're doing the off studio, and probably tomorrow we shall have it live at the studio. Out of here. Bye-bye for now.